to make this explanation and make this discussion as simple as possible. And wherever you have anything in your mind, you can please stop me in between. We would rather like to have a discussion rather than me speaking all the time. So this is, I think we call it a workshop, otherwise it is kind of a lecturing thing, right? So let me start this, and I'm starting this with this disclaimer. Comes from Carl Gauss, who is a famous mathematician, who is known for number theory, geometry, his contribution to planetary astronomy also. He says that there have only been 3 epoch-making mathematicians: Archimedes, Newton, and Einstein. And obviously, we are discussing statistics. So I am not an exception, nor was Carl Gauss an exception. Nobody is as better as Archimedes, Newton, and Einstein. The only thing that why I put this slide across is because we are discussing, and I know something that I'm here to share with all of you. You have something you can also share. So it is going to be discussion mode. So please do not treat me as an expert. We are just in a discussion where we can learn from each other. Let us start the discussion. So I would like to have your kind of contribution into this, so that I know that where are we sitting and where we have to start from. I just want to know from you to land up and to build up the platform for understanding the sample and the sample size. What do you think? What is the most important factor in research? Invariably, I'm trying to understand from you and your opinion. What is it because of which we have to do research? If we do not have this thing, maybe we do not need to do research. Any one of you can speak and can let me know your opinion. What is the single most important factor? If this thing is not there, we would not have been sitting here. I would not have been talking to you. You would not have been hearing to me. Smriti says research problem. You can type in your stuff. Thank you, Smriti, for your this thing. Research problem is the first thing. That is fantastic, wonderful. Without wasting time, let me carry on with this. Smriti is not wrong when she says research problem. Research problem has to be there, and when we will have research problem, then only we will think of a research. Shagun says problem identification. Thank you, Shagun, for your contribution to this. Problem identification is in fact the first step when we talk of research. This is how we start the research process, right? Okay, now let me try to take you something and let us discuss something, and then we will address this question, right? I'm showing you some images now, and you can see 7 pens here, right? And I'm going to ask a simple question from all of you. If I can choose 1 pen out of these 7 pens, now for instance, these 7 pens are there. I choose up only 1 pen, and I study this pen fully. I look at it around this way, that way, here and there and everywhere. And then I say that all pens are like this. Is it possible for me to say this? Yes or no? Type into chat box. Can I pick up only 1 pen out of this lot? I just study this, and can I say that all pens are like this? So Nisha says no, Vidul says no. Okay. Shiva says no perfectly. Shivangi Sethi says no, Nisha Moore says no, Nidhi Jaiswal says no. So it means no is going to be the thing which people like. In fact, when you will see, let me try to come upon this point. When we are actually looking at this pen from outside, all these pens are appearing to be equal, right? They appear to be equal. So if I am asked that comment something onto these pens, I can take up this pen and I can study this, and at least peripherally, I can say that all pens are like this. When you say no, maybe you are trying to get into deep inside of it, and then you say ki, no, there would be some differences in between all those pens, but we are talking from the peripheral level. At least looking at it peripherally, we can choose up 1 pen because all these pens are equal, you see. If you would look at the color shades, it is equal. If you would look at the design, it is absolutely similar. In fact, these all 7 pens are 1 picture copied and pasted over and above each other type of a thing. So if you would look at it peripherally, we can say that yes, at least the way we are looking at them, they all are like this. right? Now, let me change this scenario a bit. And obviously, I'm talking of it peripherally. The thing which I was telling you a while ago, that we can choose up one thing, and perhaps we are, to some extent, we can say that these old pens appears to be like this. Does that thing also hold true with this lot of pen which is on your screen now? Is it still true? Can I still pick up one pen out of this lot, and can I say that all pens are like this? This is the question. Here the things have changed. You can see, at least the way we are looking at it, the colors are different for these pens, and therefore there is a change in this pen. So maybe we are not in that position wherein we will choose one pen and we say that all pens are like this, right? What if we are talking of something like this? Here it is for sure, we by no means on this planet we can say that all pens are like this by picking up only one pen, right? Now, when we have transferred ourselves from that yes to this no, what is the reason that why we have been actually, you know, changing our opinion from the time when we said yes to this time when we are saying no? And this thing is variation, right? Now, the pens are different in this thing. If I can highlight this part, the pens are different. In this part, the difference was less. And in this part, there was no difference. So that is why perhaps we can pick up this one thing. We can say that all these things are like this. In this case, it is not true when we pick up any one thing from here. Let's choose up this thing and we say that all pens are like this. Obviously, this is not the case. So this variation. Now, I firmly believe when I ask this question, what is the single most important factor for research and why do we do that? I would say that it is variation in very, very layman terms. And I will try to tell you that why it is so. Imagine if there is no variation. Let me put it in another way. Now, for instance, if these are 5 pens, suppose this is our population, right? If this is our population, let me or let us assume that there are 2 types of pen in this lot. So these 2 is type A, right? Hypothetically, I am saying these 3 is type B. So which means these 2 pens are absolutely kind of, you know, equal to each other. So that is why they falls into one category, which is A. These 3 falls into another category. Let's call it as B because these are equal. In this case, is not it so that if we can pick up one pen from this lot, which is A, I choose up one pen. From this lot, if I choose up another pen, right? So one pen from here. So are not these 2 pens sufficient enough to represent this population? Right? Are you getting my point? In this case, because all of them are like this, so why to choose all the 7 pens? We will pick up only one. Because one pen would tell us, because every pen is like this, if you are assuming this, every pen is like this, so one is sufficient for us to speak about this entire population. Now here in this population, the number is 7, population size is 7, right? So here, if we have 2 categories, we will pick up one from each category and our sample size would become 2. In this case, if there are 6 type of pens, if there are 6 categories of pen, if we can potentially make, we will pick up one pen from each category and therefore the sample size would become 6, right? So how this 1 to 2 to 6, how we have traveled this is because that variation has incurred into our population, or there has been variation in our population, and we must understand this, right? If all the pens are like this, obviously we would need only one pen. So if we come into social sciences where we are talking, right? If we come to social sciences, I as a researcher or anyone would want that if all the people that are living under the sun, if they are absolutely equal to each other, and I as a researcher would imagine in fairest of my dreams that if I can paint all of the people absolutely in one shade, right? But in reality, this is not the case. all of us are absolutely not equal to each other. Forget about all of them being not equal to each other. In fact, if you look at these 57 people who are now in this workshop, just pick up any three random people, and you three people are not same. Even two people, they are not same. Forget about appearances, in your taste, in your lifestyle, in your behavior, in your psychology. Everyone is different. When you approach someone with a questionnaire, you need to understand this, that if you are going to two people, these two people would tend to give you different answers to your question. If the two answers are not coming different, that means that trait, their attribute which you're trying to measure is perhaps the same, right? So in reality, what happens is that we all are different, right? As we all are different, so we actually have to have some mechanism by which we can cover this variation. Now, I'm making variation the central point here, and you can kind of stop me in between if we need some discussion on this. If all the 135 crore people living in our country, if they all would have been same, I would have picked up only anyone randomly, and I would have studied him or her, and then I would have said that this entire country is like this because all of them are absolutely equal to each other. But since this is not the case, all of us are equal to each other. All of us are different from each other. So we need to have some mechanism by which this variation which is there in data, this variation which is there in our subjects, or this variation which is there in our population, that needs to be covered. Now with this, I will take you back to that pen example. In that first example, when I have shown you 7 pens and I choose only one pen, and I said that maybe all pens are like this, so here one pen is sufficient. In this case, there is no variation in data, so one is sufficient enough, right? When there were 2 types of pen, then I chose 2 pen, one from each type, right? Now understand this, out of the 7 pens, if there were 2 types, A and B, I choose one from A, I choose one from B, right? 1, 1. Now this sample size becomes 2, 1 plus 1 becomes 2. Now this 2 is representative of this entire population, right? This 2 is representative of entire population. Now let us look at that in statistical terms. You would have been hearing this, that our sample has to be representative of our population. We can for sure, with all the mathematical and statistical properties and formulas that exist under the sun, we can say that in this case, these 2 are absolutely representative of this population, because there were only 2 type of things and we have both the things in our sample, right? So this is absolutely representative. This is called as a representation sample. Now what is happening here? And this is where the bombshell is, and you must understand this. The idea of choosing a sample is to cover this variation into our population. Here the population in this pen case was 7. There were 2 types, so the variation was not much. There were only 2 types. We have to cover this variation. If suppose there would have been 3 types of pen, let's call it as C, and we would have chosen one pen from this category also. Now the sample size would have become 2 plus 1, 3. Now this 3 is representative of 7 now, because we have covered all the variation in the data. This term I would be using throughout these 2 hours. And if you have not understood it, you can very clearly, loud and clear, you can tell me now. Otherwise, it would not make sense what we are going to discuss ahead, right? So the idea here is to have a representative sample. To have representative sample mean to cover the variation in the population. And to cover the variation in the population mean that we have to have all those type of people in our sample who are different from each other. Right? Now, this is the basic idealistic approach of doing sampling. If you would talk practically, maybe it is not possible to have all this variation explained, but this is the idea behind this size of sample, right? Now, the question is that if we have to cover this entire variation in the data, we would need a very large sample. I mean, we are not talking of, say, laboratory studies where the population is very small. We are talking of social sciences. And when we are talking of social sciences, our laboratory is society. And that is why we are social sciences, right? When our laboratory is society, so in society we have thousands and lakhs and crores of people. Now, for instance, if you are thinking of doing a study in India, which will speak about India, we are 135 crore people. Now, to cover the variation of all these people, we would need a very, very large sample if we go by that logic of covering the variation. And therefore, to have this large sample in our thing, we would require a lot of time, we would require a lot of manpower, we would require a lot of resources, and that would in turn increase our cost, right? That would increase our cost. There is no organization under the sun which can afford this cost if we are to cover the entire variation in the data, right? You can do census if you don't want to lose any information of your population. If you want to cover 100% of the data with 12th decimal place, you can do census. Nobody stops you. Census is what? Census is approaching to every population member and asking him or her the question that which is related to your question. You will get absolutely fantastic results, keeping all the things constant. We are not discussing all the other errors that might incur because of n number of reasons. To do census is not a viable thing, you know. Even governments cannot afford it. Forget about companies. We do census every 10 years. Can you imagine how many people are there into the census thing? The government machinery literally stops when census happens. Can a company do that? We cannot think of doing that. So the thing is, we have to cover this variation, but we should not have a larger size. And we cannot go to each and every one. So census is not a possibility. It's not even a distant possibility. Now what do? We have to find a way out. Therefore, we are here talking of a mechanism where we can think of the minimum possible size so that our cost of data collection or the cost of research does not increase in such a way that it explains the maximum possible variation in the data. The word that I'm using is maximum possible variation, right? Because 100% variation, you need to go to census, right? And we can discuss for hours that why it is not possible to cover the absolute 100% variation into the data. Now, how do we do that? How do we do this mechanism? So we have to do some trade-off, right? So we talk of some trade-off, and this trade-off of having the smallest possible sample which explains the maximum variation, this and this together, statistics comes to our rescue. It says, come on, I will help you. I can do that for you, right? And there is a specific technique in statistics which helps us in doing that, and that is called as sampling distribution, right? Now, let me quickly rerun through what I'm telling you. We are talking of the variation being a very important thing. Now, let us come to those answers that we've got. Smriti says research problem, problem identification. Obviously, these are important. Suppose you have a research problem. So for that research problem, you go to one man because everyone is equal in the case. So you just pick up that man and you do the stuff. So problem identification, obviously you need to know the problem, then you will think of doing a study. So obviously these are important. But when you have got your problem in hand, when you've got your identification in hand, then when you go and carry out this study, why I said if all the people would have been equal, absolutely equal to each other, we would not have been talking of sample. We would not have been talking of this concept of the central tendency. What is the central tendency? It is a central number which has a tendency to represent the entire data. So if you have 10 data points, you take an average of this. What is an average? Average is one number, and that one number is such that it represents the entire data points, right? So we would not have been talking of average, because why on earth we need to take average if everyone is like this? If suppose 10 data points are there, or were like 5, 5, 5, 5, 5, 5, 5, 5, would we be talking of this thing? We would be only saying that, okay, 5 is the thing. Mode, which is the maximum number of repeated times, we would say only this. We would not be talking of this this average. We would not be talking of dispersion. We would not be talking of standard deviation. We would not be talking of skewness. We would not be talking kurtosis. These things would not have existed. They exist because there is variation in data, right? So this is the most important thing. Now, let us try to now we are about to look at what is this sampling distribution. This is important. And from this concept of sampling distribution, we will be understanding what and how can we come to a number which would be such that it perhaps potentially is the smallest number, which has the potential of explaining the maximum possible variance in the data. And because we are talking of a number, that is why we are talking of statistics. And now from here, I would need your help in recalling your primary statistical concepts, because when we look at sampling distribution, we would need those concepts, right? Now, to understand this, I'm taking one example. Now, for instance, you have a class in which there are 50 students, right? You have a class in which there are 50 students. Suppose you have to choose and you have to know and you want to know how many groups of 7 people each can you make from a class of 50 students. I hope the question is clear. You've got 50 students in your class, and what I'm planning is, hypothetically I'm saying that my sample size is going to be 7, or I'm going to choose the 7 people from this class of 50. How many possible groups can I make of size 7 from a population size of 50, right? When we, and anyone knows how do we do that and how many groups can we potentially make here? A very quick comment, a running comment. If you have any comment, you can type into the chat box. Now, why this is important? Because this is the base. You would have heard about normal distribution, you would have heard about central tendency, and you would have heard about variation, and all these 3 things we will be talking now. Now, let us make sense of this. We need to go to the combination formula that we have done into our mathematical classes when we would be in 10th standard or 11th standard or 9th standard and all. And sir, you rightly said permutation and combination. Here, from this permutation combination, Nisha also said permutation combination. Thank you, Nisha, for this. Now, we've got 2 things here, permutations and combinations. Now, which thing we will apply here to do that? Right now, why I'm spending a minute on this is because generally I've been hearing that some students would say that, oh, come on, 50 divided by 7, these many numbers we can make. We will talk of combinations here. And Nisha said combination, so that is right. Because permutation takes care of the order also, right? Order is also important in permutation. In combination, it does not matter. Now, what does that mean is, now for instance, if we have this A, B, C, D, E, F. Now, suppose I have to pick up 2 people from here, sample size of 2. So first size is AB, another size will be AC, another sample would be, third will be AD. Now, in combination, AB is equal to BA. Because in this first, A is coming first, B is coming later. In second thing, B is coming first, A is coming later. So order does not make sense to us. Now, for when you are doing research, you got a sample size of say 7. It doesn't matter whether you're going to Akash first, or you're going to Amit first, or you're going to XYZ first. It has no implication on your data, because so the order is not important. So that is why we are talking combination. We will not go to permutation here, right? So that age is all formula NCR, if you will do, you can get this number. So this is 9,98,84,400 people, or 400 combinations. These many combinations we can make. Now, 50 population size, 7 if it is our sample size. How many potential samples can we make from this population of 50 size? We can make 9,98,84,400. These many samples I can potentially make. And now just think about this. And now it is not about hearing, but it is about absorbing this. For instance, if you are there, now some of you might have a question that why are we talking of the sample size 7? We are yet to decide our sample size, right? But this is how we talk of it in maths and statistics. I hope you would recall from your mathematics classes in 10th and 11th and 12th that let us suppose the thing is like this. And then we have either approved it or either kind of disapproved it. So this is how we are starting, right? If at all, think it like this: from this class of 50, if you are given a chance of choosing a sample, you are told that, okay, pick up 7 people from this class. You will choose one sample. Obviously, you will choose any 7 people randomly or with your convenience or whatever method you adopt. You have to understand that sample that you have chosen, this sample that we have chosen, I'm writing it at S. This will be one of the samples from these 9,98,84,400 possible samples. Are you getting my point? Because this is an exhaustive list of samples that could potentially be drawn. No sample can be outside these many samples. You will choose up any sample which is out of these samples only, right? If you are taking this sample size. Now, if I can go on like this, if I say that first sample, I take 7 people. Now, for example, if you talk of the mean height of your class, hypothetical example, so you chose up the 7 people, you go to the first one, you say, what is your height? He or she says 170 centimeters, another one says 160, another one says 165, 168. You get an average of this, let's call it as A1, right? Then out of this over 9 crore samples that are there, you go to second sample, you choose you calculate their height and you take an average of this, let's call it as A2. Then you go to the third sample, then you go to the fourth sample. If you will go to all the way to 9,98,84,000 samples like this, and you get a mean of this. Now, this is very important to understand. What I'm doing here is, out of this 9,98,84,400 samples, I am choosing all those samples. Hypothetically, you have to imagine the first sample that I chose, I've got A1 as the mean height, right? So this X1 might be 161, 162, 170, 172. This is the mean thing, right? A1. Similarly, A2 is the mean. Similarly, A3 is the mean. Similarly, A4, A5 till A9,98,84,400, right? So which means now I have, and understand this carefully, now this is the trivia here, and that is what makes it interesting also, and that is what the gist of it also. Now your population size was 50, your sample size was 7, right? So even if you would have done census, you just have to collect data from 50 people in this case. But this thing that you are having now, this has 9,98,84,400 observations. And now let's call them as observation. Observation number 1, observation number 2, observation number 3, observation number 4, right? From a population of 50, we have these many possible samples, right? Our population is 135 crore. Forget about nation. Let us look at Dharamshala as a place only. It would be in lakhs. 50 only, these many combinations. Have you ever done a study which has only a sample size of 7? It would be high. When you increase this 7, then this will also increase. This number would also increase, right? And if I can show this to you, let me share my screen. Just a minute. I just want to show you something around this. Let me know if you can see my screen. Is my screen visible?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes.
Now let us look at it like this. Let me increase the size of this so that you can see. I am onto Excel and I am writing here population, right? And that is our sample. Now this population was, let's take a very small example. Let's take 10 and sample size is 2, right? Or sample size, let's start it from 1 only. I am dragging this thing down and I am kind of, filling the series, and this population size don't change. And here is the combinations. So combinations formula in Excel, I hope you would know, is combine, right? You type in equal sign, combine, tab, and then you select N, which is population, NCR formula we are doing, and I'm doing comma. Our R thing is the sample size, and I'm closing this up, and I'm kind of, you've done this, right? Now I can send this down, and this is how it looks like. Now these are our combinations. Instead of this 10, we have taken 50 there, the PPT example that we are doing, and sample size was our 7. Look at this, population remains constant. As the sample size is increasing, the possible combinations are also increasing. And that is what I was telling you. There is no study in which you have 7 sample size. You increase the sample size from 7. It is in 200s, 300s, 500, 700, something like this. So the possible combinations would also increase, right? Till the point the population, the sample size reaches the half of the size of population. You look at this now. This thing, where as you go to 6, this is a mirror image. Now you have 210 here. This is 210. You have 120 here. You have 120. You have 45 here. You have 45. You have 10 here. You have 10 here. So when your sample size reaches half of the population size, your combinations stop increasing. In fact, they start showing the mirror image of the previous sample that they have. So if you would look at it statistically and mathematically, it makes no sense if you choose up your sample size which is more than half of the size of your population. We never do that. For 135 crore thing, we would never end up in going to 70 crore sample. We would never do that, but it's just a thing that I think I can tell you. Now coming back to this PPT, here we are. No, these are the data points that I was talking about. Now, what is then sampling distribution? Sampling distribution is nothing but it's a relative frequency distribution of this A1, A2, AN, and A9 crore 98 lakh 84,400. If you can do a simple frequency distribution of these things, simple frequency distribution. I hope you know what is frequency distribution. Here you write usually the things which how many times they are repeated, and this is the observation. Mind you, now observation is not the actual mean, actual height of the student, which is 170 centimeter. Now the observation is A1, A2, right? A3. Now, when these are the observations, then we are talking of this frequency distribution, and this frequency distribution is called as sampling distribution. So, what is a sampling distribution? Sampling distribution is nothing, but it is a relative frequency distribution of the means of all the possible samples that you could draw from a population of finite size. Now, let me run through it. Sampling distribution is the relative frequency distribution of all the potential samples of finite size which you can potentially draw from a population of finite size. When you do that, that becomes the sampling distribution. Right? Now, a very important property of sampling distribution. If you will take the mean of this A1, A2, A3, A4 till A9 crore 98 lakh 84,400, that will be the absolute mean height of your class, right? Now, let me try to make sense of this once again so that it doesn't confuse you. We've got this 50 people, we've chosen up the samples of size 7, and then we've got the means of all those potential samples. Now those means were plotted into a frequency distribution. That frequency distribution is there. Now let us take a mean of this A1 plus A2 plus AN plus A9 lakh and divide it by 9 crore 98 lakh 84,400. You get something. That something is the mean of means. Are you getting this point? When I'm taking mean of A1, A2, AN, this is mean of means. Mean of means. Right? You have to remember this thing. This is mean of means. And we can, to understand that carefully, we can write it as X double bar, right? Mean of means. Because you generally represent a mean by X bar. Because it is mean of means, I'm writing it as X double bar. Right? Now, there is another question from all of you, and that question is, we have now said that mean of A1, A2, An is equal to the absolutely equal to the mean height of the class. But will the standard deviation, which is a measure of variation, we have started our discussion from variation, will the standard deviation of these numbers, which are A1, A2, An, would also be equal to the standard deviation of our population? Have you understood the question? You can write into the chat box. Will the standard deviation of A1, A2, A3, A4 will also be equal to the standard deviation of the population? For mean, it is true. The mean of A1, A2, An, A9 crore, whatever, is absolutely equal to the mean of population. So if you would have taken the 50 people, their height, and you take up their average, whatever number you come across, that number is absolutely equal to the number that you're coming across in this sampling distribution. Is it also true for this standard deviation? Let me come back to this thing. If anyone, Nisha says, okay. To cut the long story short, let me go back to this. I'm going back to my PPT. It will not be equal. Means of A1, A2, An. Now understand this. This is the pitch point of the sampling distribution. Mean of A1, A2, An would be equal. No doubt on this. Now, the standard deviation is not going to be equal. Why is it so? I hope you can recall from your statistics class, standard deviation, which is represented by sigma, is inversely proportional to the size of sample. This is how it goes, right? You can recall this is how it goes. You know what the formula of sigma is: x minus x bar, and you do a square of it and you sum it, and then you kind of divide it by the n, and then you take a root of that. So invariably, to cut the long story short, sigma, which is standard deviation, is inversely proportional to the n. N here is our sample size. Now what does it tell you? It tells us a very simple thing, that if we increase the n, if n goes up, the sigma comes down. If n goes up, sigma will come down, because it is inversely proportional to the n. Now let us compare the two scenarios. Population, we have the n as 7, right? In case of sampling distribution, how much is our n? It is in crores. It is this much: 9 crore 98 lakh 84,400. The sample size has shooted up. In sampling distribution, sample size is in crores. In case of population, it was very less. So as the sample size has gone up, the standard deviation will come down. This is what this formula tells you, and this is what this tells you. You can also think, forget about formula, forget about statistics, and they are always there to confuse us. Just imagine this: there is a room, and in that room there are only 3 people sitting. Now that room is 10 by 10 room, right? So you now do the standard deviation, or in other sense, you just calculate the distance between the 2 people. Obviously, when the 10 by 10 room is there, you've got 3 people sitting there, so obviously there will be distance between these 3 people. Now let me increase the number of people in the same room with 100. If 100 people are sitting in that room, what will be the difference, or the difference of distance between them? They will be kind of very tightly. There will literally be any difference between them. When there is no difference, then obviously, what is the variation? Variation is nothing. We start it with x minus x bar, right? So this is the variation. The variation is bound to decrease when the things increases, when the sample size increases, and this is what this formula tells you, right? So increasing the size of sample would decrease the standard deviation. Now here is the trick. That means that the standard deviation in case of sampling distribution is not equal to the standard deviation of the population or the sample, right? I am reasoning through it. The standard deviation of the sampling distribution is not equal to the standard deviation of the population or sample. it can be said that the standard deviation of sampling distribution is less than the standard deviation of the population or sample. And the relationship that they share is, if I can write sigma SD, I'm writing sigma SD as sigma of sampling distribution. This is equal to the sigma of population divided by root of n. This is the relationship that they share. Right? So which means that this thing is high. So when you divide the population standard deviation with the sample size, you get the standard deviation of sampling distribution, because it is all n. It is all sample size. It is all the number of observations that are there in this data. Right? Have you understood this concept? Then I will go on. Say yes or no. Let me see the chat box. Inversely proportional. Okay, Nisha, thank you so much. You got this thing. If I got any thing, then okay, more the n, less the standard deviation. Yes, that is exactly the case. So thank you. I've got no. So Manpreet madam is saying no bias. Okay, so that is okay. Perfect. Now with this, we can go ahead now. We've understood what is sampling distribution. Now there is very important thing about sampling distribution here, and that thing is that the sampling distribution, or the relative frequency distribution that you've got here, it has been found out that it is a normal distribution. And I'm underlining this line, which is in green. The sampling distribution of mean is normal distribution. Now, why is it the case? I hope you would have read this central limit theorem. Now, this says, as the size of sample increases, the distribution of that sample tends to follow normal distribution. And my friends, in our case, sample size is more than 9 crore. It has to be a normal distribution going by that central limit theorem, right? I'm rerunning through my words. As the size of sample increases, the distribution tends to follow the normal distribution. In our case, it is more than 9 crore. So obviously it has to be normal distribution, right? Now, this 9 crore comes when we had only a population size of 50 with a sample size of only 7. In real life, we are talking of population size of in lakhs or in crores, and the sample size in thousands or maybe at least in hundreds. So that has to be in crores. So when it is in crores, the sampling distribution is a normal distribution for that matter. When it is a normal distribution, then we can apply the properties of normal distribution on sampling distribution, right? Now, if it is a normal distribution, we can apply the properties of normal distribution on sampling distribution also. Now, what is a normal distribution? I hope this picture would recall you of the normal distribution. Look at this. The normal distribution is essentially a bell-shaped curve in which in the middle of it sits the mean. Now, this point is mean, right? This is the mean. This side of normal distribution is equal to this side. They are in fact the mirror image of each other, right? So mean sits in the middle. The area on both sides of the curves is also equal. Now there is one thing which is of most importance to us when we are talking of sample size. Now what is that thing? Have you noticed something which is written bottom in the bottom of this 0? What is this 0? If anyone can tell me. What is this 1? What is this 2? What is this 3? Minus 1, minus 2, minus 3. What are these numbers? Anyone? Let me go to chat box if I get anything. Standard deviation, okay. Shivangi Sethi says, sir, could you please define last point? I don't know which point you are saying, Shivangi. If you can please a little bit of, clarify this, I would be happy. So let me, I was telling you, Shivangi, I don't know which point categorically you were talking about, but I was saying that the sampling distribution is always a normal distribution, or the distribution of sampling distribution is a normal distribution. In other terms, the means, which are the data points in the sampling distribution, they are so many in numbers, more than 8 crores. Right? So if it is a normal distribution, if sampling distribution is a normal distribution, we can talk of the properties of normal distribution having mirrored to sampling distribution also. And now with that thought, we have come on to the normal distribution. And this is onto your slide, the normal distribution. Now, normal distribution properties, we have talked about that this is mean. Now, this value which are looking in the bottom that I was asking, this is Z value. It is Z statistic, right? You would have heard about Z. Let me recall you the formula of Z also. Z is used to normalize the data, right? It normalizes the data. Z's formula is X minus X bar divided by sigma. This is the formula for Z, right? In statistics books, you know this. From normal distribution, you know this. This value is Z value, 0, 1, 2. Now, let us look at this. Why this value is 0 here? Why this value is 0 here? Look at the formula. The formula for Z is X minus X bar. So X is the observation, X bar is the mean, right? So in the middle of this normal distribution is the mean. So this observation, which is X here, is actually mean itself. So for instance, I'm taking 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 data points. What is the mean of these data points? It is 3. So 3 is in the center, 3 sits into the middle. So for Z, to calculation of Z for the mean, we have to say what is our observation for this thing? The observation is 3. What is the mean? It is 3. So 3 minus 3. So 3 is the X here. This is observation value. Mean is also 3. And we divide it by anything that gives us 0. That is why Z is always 0 for a normal distribution, right into the middle when the mean is there. Right? When you go to the right hand side of this, the Z values increase. Right? Now, look at this. I'm working on this formula now. Can I write this formula like 1 by sigma and in bracket X minus X bar? Right? This is the formula. This is the same thing. Now, what is this value? This is important. What is this value? This one, X minus X bar. Look at this and understand this carefully. If you want me to repeat this 2 times, 3 times, 5 times, I will do that. But this is that important to understand. Look at what is this is. This is X minus X bar. X bar is your mean, right? X is your observation. So this is the difference from the mean. Is not a difference from the mean? X minus X bar. In other terms, now this value speaks about how far away we are from the mean. Right? This X minus X bar speaks about how far away we are from the mean. And this is something which is called as the precision level also. And we will talk about that. How far away we are from actual mean is this X minus X bar. Now, let me try to explain this with an example. Otherwise, it will confuse you. I'm taking you back to the Excel sheet now. Let me get to a new thing. Increase the size of it so that you can see this. Now, look at this. We were on to this thing, right? We are talking of this X minus X bar thing and Z thing, right? So Z formula you just have to remember, right? Z formula you have to remember. Now, can we write this formula? When I'm talking of this formula, I'm bringing this formula down like, can I write X equals X bar plus minus Z sigma? Right? I've just solved this equation for X. I solved this equation for X. Right? What I'm trying to tell you that Z and X are two different things. Now, this is the thing which students find most confusing. And I will today make it clear to you, whatever may come. X and Z are two different things. X is your actual observation. Here, the example that we were talking is the height of the student. So X is like 172, right? X is like 162. X is another student's height can be 151. Another student can be 175. Another student can be 166. This is X. Z is not X. Understand this again very carefully. For every value of X, there is a value of Z, right? I'm repeating this. This is again that important. Every value of X carries a value of Z. Now this point that central value. This is the X bar, right? This is because this is mean. I've said that in normal distribution, middle point is mean. So for this value of X, which is X bar, the Z value is 0, right? This is what I'm trying to tell you. So when Z value is 1, there would be some value of X also. And for that, I'm taking you to the Excel sheet. Right? Now, what is this formula? Formula is X bar plus minus Z sigma. Now, let us say sigma, right? So I'm picking up the things from here. This Z is sigma. Sorry, this sigma is here. Z. This is Z value, right? This is Z I have taken, and this is mean, which is X bar. Yeah, 3 things I have taken. So Z I have taken, sigma I have taken, and X bar I have taken. So X bar I wrote with the name of mean. So this is mean, this is sigma, this is Z. Right? Sigma is standard deviation. Let's call standard deviation is say 10. Hypothetically, I'm saying. What is the Z value? Z has a static. It is a static value. Does not change. For 95% level of confidence, and I will tell you what is that. The value of Z is 1.96. You can go to your stat table, or I mean, there are numerous ways of looking at it. Does not change. For 95% level of confidence, Z value is 1.96. So I'm writing that 1.96 there. Mean. Now, for instance, suppose the mean is 170 in this class. Hypothetically, I'm saying this is the mean thing, right? This is the height thing, right? Now, let us look at this. Let us calculate the value of X. Value of X, this is the thing, this thing. When value of Z is, let us talk of this thing. Value of Z is 1 here, value of Z is 2 here. Let us calculate what is the value of X when Z is 1, what is the value of X when Z is 2, right? So I'm solving this equation for value of Z as 1. So X bar, which is this, X bar is equal to, X bar is our mean, right? So because I'm going to the right side of the curve, so I will write plus, right? You can stop me in between if it is not, if it is creating problem for you, right? So now Z value for me is 1. I'm doing it as 1 multiplied by, look at this standard deviation. So standard deviation is 10, right? So I'm saying enter. It's got something wrong. It is 180. So now for value of Z1, now this is when value of Z is 1, when Z is 1, right? Now when let us bring it down to 3 level and let us make it also 3, fill the series, make it 1, 2, 3, right? And also in this formula, let us change this. So instead of this 1, let me link it with this 180. So I'm sending this down. Look at this. When X value is, when Z is 1, X value is 180, right? The mean is 170. This is X bar. When Z is 1, it is 180. When Z is 2, it is 200. When Z is 3, it is 230. That means what? This thing, let me choose a different color so that it becomes a little bit easy for you. Let me pick up at this point. At this point, the mean is 170, right? At this point, the X is how much? 180. This is what we have found out from Excel. You see, this is 180. When it is 2, it is 200. When the Z is 3, the value is 230. Right? Now, because it is a mirror image, so when it becomes -1, so because the difference between 170 and 180 is 10, so this point, at this point, the X will become 160. Right? At this point, it will become something. At this point, it will become something. Now, what are we talking here? We are talking here something which is important. That important is, look at now X 160 and X 180. This is Z plus minus 1. This is the region that I'm talking. For a normal curve, it says this region when Z is plus minus 1, it has 68.27 98% of the observations lie in this region. If I can shade it like this region, right? Now let me try to explain this to you, and you let me know if it makes sense. You are talking of a population size of 50 with a sample size of 7, right? Now think this, out of how many samples were there, total sample? Let me write this down also. Total samples were 9 crore 90, how many were they? I forgot this. These were 998 84 400. 998 84 400. These were the total sample, right? Now 160 and 180 is the range for Z, value of Z as 1, right? So now we are writing here 60, this covers 68% of the region. So 68% इसका निकाल लेते हैं. This multiplied by 68, and to be precise 68.27, 68.27%. This becomes this much. 9 crore 98 lakh 84,400 का 68% बनता है आपका. ये how much it has become? 6 crore 81 lakh 91,079. अब इसको ध्यान से समझिए. Out of the all potential possible samples of more than 9 crore, in fact around 10 crores, there will be around 7 crore samples from this population that will give you a mean value between 160 and 180. दूसरे शब्दों में इस 50 बच्चों की क्लास में से आप आंख बंद करके सैंपल उठा लीजिए. कोई तो सैंपल इसी में से उठाएंगे ना. 9 या 10 करोड़ पॉसिबल सैंपल जो हैं, उनमें से 7 करोड़ के लगभग सैंपल ऐसे हैं जो आंख बंद करके उठा लो आप, जो आपको मीन वैल्यू देंगे बिटवीन 160 एंड 180. ये निकल के आएगा. ऐसे ही जब आप when your Z is 2, it becomes 95.43. So you do 95% of this number. उतने सैंपल ऐसे होंगे जो मीन वैल्यू इस रेंज के बीच में देंगे. अब आप जब भी कोई सैंपल उठाते हैं, दैट सैंपल इज आउट ऑफ दिस थिंग ओनली, out of these potential samples only, and therefore there is a value of X and there is a value of Z also, right? If you've understood this concept, let me go to this. Sir, the point of sampling, thank you sir, I was asking that. Okay, standard deviations, variance, okay, fair enough. Now with this, let me go back to our sample size. I'm coming to a blank slide now. Look at this. We have set Z as X minus X bar divided by sigma. This is simple Z statistic. When our sampling distribution is also a normal distribution, let us translate this formula for our sampling distribution. So Z becomes SD, which is Z, I'm writing it as Z for sampling distribution. Right? Now, what is this X in our case of sampling distribution? If anyone can tell me, if you can tell me this thing right, I would know that you understood it. What is X in case of sampling distribution? For Z, I have written Z as SD for sampling distribution. What is X in case of sampling distribution? Anyone, if you can put down into the chat box, what is X in case of sampling distribution? Anyone coming up? In other words, what was X here? Let me give you a hint. The X in this formula is the observation, right? So if 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 are your data points, so this 1 is your X, 2 is your X, 3 is your X, 4 is your X, 5 is your X, and the mean of this data is 3. So 3 is this X bar. So for ZSD, for sampling distribution, what is this X? Mean of sample test. Absolutely. Thank you, sir. This is X bar. You remember A1, A2, A3. Actually, in sampling distribution, observations are these. So this is nothing but this is X bar. This X bar was A1, A2, something like this. So I'm writing it as X bar. Minus X bar becomes X double bar. Do you remember in that slide I've shown you the mean of A1, A2, A3, A4 to A9 crore, 98 lakh, whatever. That is the mean height of the class. So this is the mean height. and I am dividing it by sigma. Sigma is for SD, for sampling distribution, right? So I have transferred this simple formula for Z, which was for normal distribution, to the sampling distribution. Now, we know, I'm pointing out like this, we know that standard deviation of sampling distribution is not equal to the standard deviation of population. The relationship they share is this. I've already told this to you. Because we know that the standard deviation of sampling distribution is less than the population standard deviation. This is the relationship they share. So if I can put that thing in this becomes x minus x bar, x double bar, sorry, divided by sigma, and this thing gets multiplied by root of n, and that becomes ZST. And when you solve it for n, that becomes Z sigma square divided by x minus x. This is double bar, this is single bar, and the square. Now, what is this value? Now, this is important, and that is what I have also asked you. I was talking to you. What is this value, x minus x bar? This is precision level, right? Or in other words, this is difference from the mean. So generally, you will find in statistics books, it is written as z square sigma square. People write it with d square. This is d is precision level. This is n. This is how we come to the formula of sample size. Now, what you need to do, you need to know the z for 95% thing. You have z value as 1.96. Put that value. The sigma value will come from where? I will tell you. D value will come from where? I will tell you. Now, this is the conceptual explanation of your sample size, right? This is the size of sample. Anyone who has a problem in this expression, they can tell me. I'm in connection with the chat box. Okay, so you can tell me and let me know whenever you have got something in your mind. Now, let us come to where from we will get this sigma and how on earth we will get this D. Now, this is the thing left because we've got the formula now. Okay, now first of all, let us come to this 95%, this confidence interval. I'm taking you back to this curve, right? Now, there is something which is called as confidence interval. There is something which is called a precision level. Is how much precise are we, right? This is what the precision level is. Now, let me come back here only. Now, if this is our curve, and this is our mean, which is right into the middle of it. Our idea is to choose a sample. Understand this. I've already told you that this thing, this line speaks of the observation. This line speaks of the x values. There is a value of x here. There is a value of x at this point also. There is a value of x at this point also. And this is the mean value. Whenever we are choosing a sample, we are choosing it in such a way so that and understand this carefully, so that it gives us this value. And to make your life little easy, you have to understand this. I was telling you this is a sampling distribution. And in sampling distribution, you look at the peak. Where is peak? Peak is right for the mean. And peak means this value. This is the highest value. And this was frequency, if you will remember. And what does that mean? Understand this carefully. That means out of this around 10 crore samples, maximum samples are such in this data which would give you x bar. क्योंकि आप अगर एक ऐसा सैंपल उठाते हैं जो ये वाली वैल्यू आपको दे रहा है, you look at these are less in numbers. ये बस इतने हैं सैंपल. सबसे ज्यादा सैंपल वही है जो ट्रू मीन देंगे आपको, जो x बार देंगे. Your challenge is that you have to choose this sample, जो कि ये वाला दें. ये अगर 10 करोड़ की बात कर रहे हैं, ये होंगे आपके 3-4 करोड़ होंगे कम से कम. Now the thing and the trick is you somehow have to choose such a sample which gives you a value which is nearer to x bar. X bar क्या है हमें नहीं पता, क्योंकि 135 करोड़ लोगों के ऊपर जब हम काम कर रहे हैं, तो we don't know. You will end up in choosing, hypothetically say your sample size becomes 1000. 1000 लोग आपने चूज करने हैं. 1000 आप कोई भी चूज कर सकते हैं ना. अब आपने वो 1000 चूज करने हैं जो कि आपको ये वाली वैल्यू दें x bar. अगर वो नहीं कर सकते तो कम से कम इतना तो हम इंश्योर करें कि हम नियरेस्ट आए इस एक्स बार के, यानी कि ये वाला सैंपल चूज करें या ये वाला भी चूज कर सकते हैं, ये वाला भी चूज कर सकते हैं। और एक लेवल के बाद ये आपकी लिमिट आ जाती है, इस लिमिट के बाहर भी कुछ सैंपल्स हैं, ये सैंपल्स चूज नहीं करने आपने, क्योंकि ये तो देखो मीन से कितना दूर आएगा इसका मीन ये आएगा। हम अपने एग्जांपल केस में देख रहे थे, द मीन इज 170 सेंटीमीटर। नाउ दिस, अगर ये सैंपल चूज किया, ये भी तो एक सैंपल ही है जिसका कुछ मीन आएगा, इसका मीन तो 190 195 है। हाउ फार यू आर फ्रॉम द एक्चुअल मीन? दिस इज नॉट अ गुड स्टडी, यू कैन नॉट यूज इट इन डिसीजन मेकिंग। You have to choose a sample which is nearer to the X bar. How can you do that? Decrease your precision level. What is precision level? This X minus X bar. X bar minus X double bar है। ये वैल्यू आप जितनी कम लेंगे उतना nearer आप X bar के होंगे, which is your mean. Now here is the trick. Lesser this value, look at this. N is inversely proportional to the d square. D square is nothing but it is this. Lesser this value, higher will be the size of sample. मतलब जितना प्रेसाइज आप होना चाहेंगे, जितना मीन के ज्यादा करीब आप जाना चाहेंगे, more precise you want to become, you have to increase your sample size. Sample size required would be high, right? So you as a researcher decide this value of d, how much precise you want to be. You can decide it in percentage terms or you can decide it in absolute terms. Absolute terms in the sense कि हमारा ये 170 मीन था, आप ये चाहते हैं कि मैं ये सिर्फ 5 लूं, d की वैल्यू यानी कि x minus x bar, you want it is 5. That means if the true mean, hypothetically if it is 170, you do not want to allow an error in your sample which gives you mean आउटसाइड दिस रेंज 165 and 175, क्योंकि 5 का एरर आपने अलाउ कर दिया। इसी को तो प्रेसिजन लेवल बोलते हैं। आप ये प्रेसिजन लेवल अगर डिक्रीज कर देंगे, 3 कर देंगे, तो आपकी जो रेंज हो जाएगी वो आपकी हो जाएगी 167 to 173। यानी कि ये जो सैंपल आप चूज करेंगे, ये सैंपल इस मीन के बीच में ही रिजल्ट देगा आपका। सो मोर प्रेसाइज यू वांट टू बिकम, मोर सैंपल साइज यू नीड। This is D, which is this thing, and we will solve it also. I will show you. Now come on to this sigma. Z की वैल्यू हमें पता है, this is static. So n is also directly proportional to the square root of sigma. Square root of sigma. That means more is the variation, more will be the sample size required. Right? More is the variation in data, and that is where I have started from. अगर आपके पास 3 तरह के पेन हैं, तो यानी कि वेरिएशन अब ज्यादा बढ़ रहा है, तो आपको 3 का सैंपल साइज चाहिए होगा। अगर आपके पास 10 तरह के पेन है अपनी पॉपुलेशन में, तो वेरिएशन बढ़ गया ना अब, तो आपको 10 सैंपल साइज चाहिए, क्योंकि आपको तो वेरिएशन कवर करना है। बिकॉज दिस n is directly proportional to the square of standard deviation, which is a very robust measure of variation. Therefore, whatever the sample size that comes out of this formula, that ensures you statistically that it would try to explain the maximum possible variance into your data. Right? Now, I have told you how on earth you decide D. That is on to you as a researcher. Where from this sigma comes? अब ये सिग्मा कहां से आएगा? देखिए, 2 तरीके हैं। या तो आपके पास पॉपुलेशन का सिग्मा हो, right? Population का sigma, you must know what is the standard deviation of your population. Or many times we don't have. अगर 135 करोड़ लोगों के ऊपर स्टडी करनी है, तो पहले 135 करोड़ लोगों का डाटा इकट्ठा करो, फिर उसका स्टैंडर्ड डेविएशन निकालो। I mean, this is the most bizarre thing that a researcher can think of. So what do we do? जो सैंपल हमारा, हम एक बात करते हैं पायलट स्टडी की। There is something called as pilot study, right? So when you talk of this pilot study, you randomly collect. Suppose you want to do a study in Dharamshala. अभी आपको नहीं पता कि आपका सैंपल साइज कितना हो। You want to do a study in Himachal Pradesh. You now don't know. You prepare your questionnaire, you finalize it, and then you randomly give it to people and fill it from at least 50 to 100 people randomly, without considering what will be the sample size. Now you must at least get 100 people. 50 is the bare minimum to do a pilot thing. So you collect the data on your questionnaire from these 50 or 100 people, between 50 or 100 at least. Then, now for instance, if your questionnaire has if your questionnaire has say 15 questions or 60 questions or 50 questions or 45 questions, now you go to those questions one by one, और हर क्वेश्चन का स्टैंडर्ड डेविएशन निकालिए उस डाटा को यूज कर। ये जो स्टैंडर्ड डेविएशन निकलेगा ये सैंपल को लेकर निकला है, हालांकि जो आपने पायलट में लिया था 50 या 100, लेकिन हम इसको एस से डिनोट करते हैं, स्टैटिस्टिक्स की बुक में एस से, छोटे एस से डिनोट होता है। वी टेक इट एज द पॉपुलेशन स्टैंडर्ड डेविएशन, ठीक है, तो वो हम इन्फेरेंशियल स्टैटिस्टिक्स में इस तरह से करते हैं, एस वी टेक इट फॉर सिग्मा। नाउ द ट्रिक हियर इज दैट फॉर इंस्टेंस यू हैव 20, for that let me get back to an Excel sheet if I can take this. Now this is a data, this is the recorded data of a study that we have done in Serbia that is published in Journal of Retailing and Consumer Services. We've got some questions here, you know, this question, this question, this question. This is the respondent number 1 replying to it, respondent number 2, so the respondent number 1 is this, he's replying to all these questions. So 5 4 5, this is a 5-point Likert scale, 5 5 5 5, now 4 4 3 3 3 2, whatever number observations are given. Now let us see what I'm doing. Let me increase its size. I hope you can see this now. I'm going to this, typing in equal, and I'm writing standard deviation, STDEV. This is a formula in Excel to calculate the standard deviation, right? So what I'm doing now is I've got this pilot sample data ready with me, so I will get it down. I will select this data. Now suppose let's select 100 people, first 100 people. So I've got this 100 people data in, and I'm closing the parenthesis and I'm saying enter. Now this is the standard deviation for this question. Now let me stretch it down to the right hand side for each question, right? For each question I've stretched, and this is the values that I'm getting. So what I'm getting here is, understand this carefully, for this question, now you've got 100 people, filled your data, you got the sample standard deviation as 1.07, right? So if you can get it like this, I'm selecting all the questions now, and I'm kind of, you know, reducing the size of sample, decimal places. So this is how we've got. So now I'm coming back to the questions. Look at this. So because this is the categorical data, so we don't need this because this is too high. Okay, now for this question, the standard deviation is 1.08. For this question, it is 1.03, 1.05, 1.12, 1.21, 1.24, this 1.12. Now see, we've got some questions, and for each question, we've got a standard deviation. This is very easily doable. If you've got SPSS, you can very easily calculate the descriptives because Excel is with everyone, so I'm showing it on Excel. You can very easily do that, right? So you've got the standard deviation for each of your question in your questionnaire. I'm getting it down right side, so you can see that it is there. For some questions, you see it is high, standard deviation is high. Now, for instance, you've got 1.24 here. You can see this Z thing, G column, with the cell which is highlighted. For some, it is less, like for I question, this is the question, it is 0.99. And there, for some questions, it might be less, like 0.91 for this question. And it can be high also from 1.23, right? So if I'll get, let us check very quickly. If you've got 1.23 is the highest, right, till now. So if you will go right side, I think 1.23 is the highest. So what you can do is you go to the right hand side and you run a formula, and I'm writing it as max. Max is a formula which is in Excel, which lets you know the maximum number. Tab this cell, select the entire thing, right, and then close the parenthesis and say enter, right? So which means there is a value which is 10.71 here. So that value would be of income or age. So this is the age thing. So age, let me get rid of this. So अब देखते हैं कितना आता है ये data. So maximum is 1.83. Look at this. ये maximum variation है इस data के अंदर, type of thing. ठीक है, हाइपोथेटिकली हम लेकर चल रहे हैं, एक कंसेप्ट समझाने की कोशिश आपको कर रहा हूं। ये 1.83 को यू टेक दिस when you're coming here, this sigma, you take this 1.83 as your sigma for this calculation and you put this into this formula. देखिए मैंने किया क्या है, मैंने मैक्सिमम स्टैंडर्ड डेविएशन लिया है. क्यों लिया मैक्सिमम स्टैंडर्ड डेविएशन? See, you talk to different people, they would say different things. I usually take this maximum standard deviation because हमने जो पेन वाला एग्जांपल किया था उसमें बड़ा सीधे से हम लेकर चले थे, हमने मैक्सिमम वेरिएशन को कवर करना है. See, if you will take average, you take the average, that will reduce it. अगर मैं इसी कॉलम में जो मैंने मैक्सिमम का फॉर्मूला लगाया है, इसमें अगर मैं एवरेज का फॉर्मूला लगाता तो दिस थिंग वुड हैव कम डाउन. Instead of 1.83, it would have come down somewhere around 0.9 or something like this, or maybe 1.1 or 1.01. I don't know what would have come, but it would have come a value which is lower, which would have been lower than this. But average is kind of, something which is, when you are taking an average standard deviation, it is not covering the maximum variation which is there in your data. So by taking the maximum variation which is present in your data, you are doing justice, because in that case, this is what we. Yes, sir.
हाँ, अब ठीक है. एक्चुअली ठीक है, उस टाइम दिख रही थी ना. अब ठीक है.
ठीक है सर, ठीक है. So this is the PPT. Okay. So now the thing is, you take the maximum variation because that way you are covering the maximum variation. जितने तरह के पेन हैं वो सारे रिप्रेजेंट करने हैं ना आपने, इसीलिए मैक्सिमम आपने वो लेना है, right? So this is the idea here of taking the maximum variation. Now let me take you back to this Excel sheet and let us do a formula for sample size calculation, right? So sample size calculation का formula आपके पास है. So I am writing it as जो चीजों की हमें जरूरत है, just to make the things easy to you, we need Z, we need sigma, we need D, right? So Z, sigma and D. So I'm writing it out Z, I'm writing as sigma, and I'm writing it at D, right? So this is the sample size. So Z is 1.96, that we know. Sigma, now here we take equal sign and I'm selecting it this, right? Because this is this thing. Now D, precision. Now this is where we need a minute or two. A while ago, I was telling you that you as a researcher has to decide how much should be your D. I have told you that D is the difference, or how much away you are from actual mean, or the precision level. For if you are using, see, there are two ways in which you can look at it. Number one is, many times we do studies where we take the Likert scale. The Likert scale can be 5-point Likert scale, 7-point Likert scale, or 9-point Likert scale, right? So if you are having all the questions on Likert scale, then your Likert scale, suppose it is a 5-point Likert scale. So the maximum possible value is 5, right? Now you are doing a mean study and you want to be nearer possible to the exact mean. So how much error are you allowing in your mean that you are expecting to get when you are applying the formula for getting a sample size? On a Likert scale, of 5 points, if you say I'm allowing error of 0.25, sorry, this becomes minus 0.25. So this is the error you're allowing. So if the actual mean is 4, you are saying that I am ready to accept the results which are 3.75 and 4.25. Right? You will end up in choosing a sample which gives you a value between these two if you are selecting the D like this, right? The general trend is to get, when you're using a Likert scale, either you take this as absolute value, or in other words, because you see the 0.25 becomes too high. Let me show you this. Likert scale is 5. I'm writing it as percentage. Now, let us look at it like this. I'm saying equal to, right? This multiplied by this, and percentage. There is no number here, so let me write it as 10. Look at this. इस नंबर का 10% लगभग 0.5 बनता है. ठीक है, अब अगर मैं इस परसेंटेज को 2 कर दूं, इट बिकम्स दिस। यानी कि आप कितनी एरर अलाउ करना चाहेंगे, 10% की 2%? आप 2% एरर अलाउ करना चाहते हैं तो आप इसकी वैल्यू लीजिए प्रेसिजन की 0.01। अगर आप 3% एरर अलाउ करना चाहते हैं तो लीजिए इतना। अब जरा इसको थोड़ा सा करके देख लेते हैं एंड देन वी कैन काइंड ऑफ टॉक ऑन दिस। सो लेट अस कीप दिस वैल्यू ऑफ z एज, oh I'm so sorry, this is tricking me up, equal to this value, right? Now what was this value? To make it easier to you is d. This is d, right? And then the sample size formula, we say equal z square, so parenthesis, z value is this, multiplied again with this value, close it, right? Multiply parenthesis sigma square, sigma is this, multiply sigma, okay, divide it by d square, d is this, multiplied by d again, this is it. This becomes our sample size formula, and this is our sample size 573 with this data in place, right? Now look at this. If I say this is our percentage, you know, if I say I want to allow an error up to 6%, I'm changing this 3 to 6 here. Look at, I hope you can see my screen. Let me increase a bit, increase its size. I hope you can see this. Yes, if I've increased it to 6, the sample size has come down to 143. Right? So the trend is to take either 2 or 3 if you're using a Likert scale. So you take 3%, it becomes 573 with this standard deviation, which is 183. If you would have taken an average standard deviation from your pilot study, now this thing would have come down. Now, for instance, if your sigma would have been, say, around 1, if I write, it would have been 170 with this data in place. Right? So this is the required sample size. So when your sigma changes and when your d changes, the sample size changes. So that is why it is expected that you must take the maximum deviation which is there in your data. So in our case, it was 1.83. I'm writing it down again. And the precision level should be around 2% to 3%. Because by doing that, you are saying that I want to be only this much away from my actual mean. So if actual mean is 4, so what you are saying, I would like to have a value between 3.85 and 4.15. So which is quite, you know, a robust mechanism of being nearer to the actual mean. If you increase it, it doesn't make sense, because then though you would have a less sample size now, but the entire idea of having a sample size and to do the representative study is something that goes in vain, right? Now this is how we calculate the sample and we calculate the sample size. Now what does it do to us? It ensures all the important things for sample size determination. Number one, it ensures that the data and the population's variance is covered. It ensures that the precision level is also accurate. It gives you freedom of deciding your precision level. Number 3 is that it is perhaps the minimum possible size that would be required for doing this, right? Now, here is one more trick, one more thing which I must tell you. I'm taking you back to this thing. It is totally messed up. Okay. Okay, let me get rid of this. Let me discard this. Let me again do this. Okay, now it is clean. Look at this now. You've got this as your distribution, sampling distribution. This is where we are, and this is the middle point of it. Okay, I was telling you that this is the kind of, you know, end point where we take the z as +3 -3. Beyond that, we call it as a rejection region, right? But I was telling you that there are some samples which would give you a mean which is here. ऐसे भी सैंपल होंगे जो ये वाला मीन भी देंगे. ये सैंपल्स आपने चूज नहीं करने. बहुत कम है ये सैंपल. These are less in number, but you must not choose these samples. How do you do that? अब आपकी आती है वो सैम्पलिंग टेक्निक. जो आप पढ़ते हैं ना, प्रोबेबिलिटी सैंपलिंग, नॉन प्रोबेबिलिटी सैंपलिंग, सिस्टमैटिक, रैंडम, ऑल दैट। फर्ज करें कि ये आपका था मीन विच इज 170 सेंटीमीटर, एक्चुअल मीन जो क्लास का था। यहां पर आते आते ये जो थ्रेशोल्ड वैल्यू है, सपोज ये हम मान लेते हैं 192, तो इस तरफ सारी वैल्यूज 192 से ज्यादा होंगी, अब होंगी इससे, इस तरफ भी ऐसे ही होगा। अब ये भी तो एक सैंपल है जो 193 का भी आपका मीन देगा आपको, ये सैंपल चूज नहीं करना है आपने। वो कैसे इंश्योर करेंगे? वो इंश्योर करेंगे आप उन सैंपलिंग टेक्निक से। आप ऐसा, अब इस 50 क्लास के बच्चों में से अगर आपने सारे 90 चूज कर लिए, तो वो तो आपको 193 दे देंगे ना मीन वैल्यू, विच इज टू फार फ्रॉम द एक्चुअल मीन। इसलिए अब आप क्या करते हैं, फॉर इंस्टेंस आई एम जस्ट टेकिंग हाइपोथेटिकल एग्जांपल, सिस्टमैटिक सैंपलिंग, सिस्टमैटिक रैंडम सैंपलिंग जिसकी आप बात करते हैं, वो क्या करता है कि आप एक ऑर्डर में लगाइए 50 के 50 बच्चों को, यहां से शुरू कीजिए, सबसे कम हाइट, ज्यादा हाइट, ज्यादा हाइट, ज्यादा हाइट, ज्यादा हाइट, ज्यादा हाइट, ऐसे 50 बच्चे आपने एक ऑर्डर में खड़े कर दिए। अब आप क्या कह रहे हैं, मैं हर दूसरे बच्चे को चूज करूंगा, हाइपोथेटिकली आई एम सेइंग, ठीक है, ऐसे मैं चूज करूंगा। अब आपने क्या किया, ये चूज किया बंदा, ठीक है, सिस्टमैटिक रैंडम सैंपलिंग की बात बता रहा हूं आपको। और फिर आपने क्या किया, फिर आपने ये चूज किया, फिर एक छोड़ दे ये चूज किया, फिर ये छोड़ दे ये चूज किया। अब क्या हुआ, जिसकी सबसे कम हाइट थी वो भी सैंपल में आया, जिसकी सबसे ज्यादा हाइट थी वो भी सैंपल में आया। सैंपल साइज इज अ डिफरेंट थिंग देन द सैंपलिंग टेक्निक। We have discussed the sample size, but there is a larger question which is yet there to address, कि भाई हमें पता तो चल गया कि हमें 500 का सैंपल चाहिए, 500 लोग कौन हो, दिस इज ऑल्सो इंपॉर्टेंट क्वेश्चन, राइट। ये 500 लोग ऐसे मत चूज कर ले कि वो ये वाला मीन हमें दें या ये वाला मीन हमें दें। ये मीन एग्जिस्ट करते हैं। उस 10 करोड़ में से, उस 10 करोड़ में से कम भी आपके 1 करोड़ के आसपास सैंपल ऐसे हो सकते हैं जो कि आपके या तो ये वाला मीन देंगे या ये वाला मीन, वो सैंपल चूज नहीं करना है। इसलिए अब आप क्या करते हैं, आप रैंडम सैंपलिंग ले लो जिसमें हर के पास इक्वल चांस है, यानी कि ये वाले लोग जो यहां पर मीन जिनका आ रहा है, ये लोग भी सिलेक्ट होंगे ही होंगे, ठीक है जी। अब क्वेश्चन आता है कि कौन सी सैंपलिंग टेक्निक। देखिए क्योंकि ये वाला जो आपका शेडेड रीजन है ये बहुत बड़ा है, बहुत बड़ा है, तो आपका जो जजमेंट वाला सिस्टम है ना, वो भी आपका काम करता है। क्योंकि हमारे सोशल साइंसेज में इट इज नेक्स्ट टू इम्पॉसिबल टू डू रैंडम सैंपलिंग। इन रैंडम सैंपलिंग उसकी परिभाषा ही ये है कि each element of the population would have an equal chance of getting selected into a sample. Therefore, in order to do a random sampling, you have to have the exhaustive list of your all population people, all the elements of your population. ऐसा कभी हो सकता है क्या धर्मशाला के अंदर हर वो इंसान जो आज रह रहा है उसकी लिस्ट होगी आपके पास, अगर आप धर्मशाला की स्टडी कर रहे हैं तो? अगर एक भी इंसान छूट रहा है उस लिस्ट में, एग्जॉस्टिव लिस्ट में से, तो वो आइडियली रैंडम सैंपलिंग तो है ही नहीं, ठीक है जी। तो रैंडम सैंपलिंग इज नॉट पॉसिबल। सो today I have published 3 or 4 in A grade journals, in UKAPS level 3 also. Editors and reviewers have no issue if we are using judgmental sampling or convenience sampling. Let me tell you very straight away, because you cannot bluff the people. Just simply writing I have done random sampling, you have to face tons of bullets from the reviewers and the editors. Is if you would have been doing observational study, अगर आप एक लैब में बैठकर काम, सपोज क्लास में काम कर रहे हैं, क्लास में तो आपके पास 50 के 50 बच्चों की लिस्ट है, उसमें तो आप चूज कर सकते हैं। बट इन सोशल साइंसेज जहां हमारी लेबोरेटरी ही सोसाइटी है, हमें पता ही नहीं होता। सेंसस के पास भी पूरा डेटा नहीं है, सेंसस भी हर आदमी को मैप नहीं कर पाता। आज सेंसस हुआ है तो अगले ही दिन 10 लाख बच्चे पैदा हो रहे हैं। We cannot have these people, all of them, into our list, right? So that is why you do judgmental, you do the convenience sampling. Convenience sampling has no issues. Of late, journals are accepting it without any issues. ठीक है जी। तो ये आपका सैंपल साइज का डिस्कशन था, किस तरह से आप स्टैटिस्टिकली इस सैंपल साइज को कैलकुलेट करेंगे। और देखो, चीजों को बहुत कॉम्प्लेक्स नहीं बनाना है। आप स्टैटिस्टिक्स की बुक के अंदर जाएंगे, यू विल हैव टन्स ऑफ अदर थिंग्स आल्सो, बट जस्ट लेट अस मेक इट सिंपल। अब आपका एक्शन प्लान क्या है टू डिटरमाइन सैंपल साइज? आई एम राइटिंग इट पॉइंट बाय पॉइंट। नंबर 1, क्वेश्चनर रेडी रखो अपने पास, राइट। नंबर 2, क्वेश्चन को भरवाना शुरू करो, एटलीस्ट 50 to 100 पीपल, 50 से 100 लोगों से अपना क्वेश्चन भरवाइए। क्वेश्चन मेकिंग इज ऑल्सो साइंस, वी आर नॉट टॉकिंग दैट। जब आपने इनसे भरवा लिया, अब देखिए एक बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट बात है, मैंने आपको बताया कि यू हैव टू चूज द स्टैंडर्ड डेविएशन फ्रॉम द क्वेश्चंस ऑफ योर क्वेश्चन। नाउ व्हिच क्वेश्चंस यू विल यूज टू कैलकुलेट द मैक्सिमम स्टैंडर्ड। अब कौन से क्वेश्चंस कौन से यूज करेंगे भाई, वो क्वेश्चन मत ले लेना जो कैटेगोरिकल है। सपोज आपने मेल और फीमेल जेंडर का क्वेश्चन फिल कराया है, जेंडर को आपने 2 पार्ट्स में किया, 1 मेल को दिया, 2 फीमेल को दे दिया, आप ट्रांसजेंडर भी ले रहे हैं तो 3 दे दिया। इसको नहीं लेंगे आप इसमें, because that is not an attribute that you are trying to study, and moreover it is a categorical data। अगर आपने मेल को 1 ले लिया, फीमेल को आपने 2 ले लिया, तो is a value 1.2 possible? वो पॉसिबल ही नहीं, तो इसीलिए कंटिन्यूअस डाटा नहीं है। सो डोंट टेक कैटेगोरिकल डाटा इनटू कंसिडरेशन when you are doing this। Am I audible? In case if I just doing
No,
a
no.
quick...
Yeah, you are audible. You are audible.
Okay, thank you sir.
Ajay,
Yes जी sir।
you can add some one thing more about, especially if there are some questions on ratio scales like
ओके
हाँ उसपे थोड़ा, जैसे सपोज इनकम है, एज है, उसमें हमारा जो स्टैंडर्ड डेविएशन में भी डिफरेंट, कैन वी डू इट इन परसेंटेज लाइक दिस?
ओके, थैंक यू सर फॉर हाईलाइटिंग दिस। अब देखिए आपको एक चीज ध्यान रखनी है, एक मिनट में इसको सीक्वेंस को थोड़ा कंप्लीट कर दो, फिर आई विल कम टू दिस आल्सो सर। दिस इज क्वेश्चन 50 से 100 लोगों से भरवाइए, फिर स्टैंडर्ड डेविएशन लीजिए, मैक्सिमम लीजिए और प्रेसिजन लेवल फिर आपने डिसाइड कीजिए, दिस इज प्रेसिजन लेवल, एंड देन फिफ्थ पुट इट इनटू योर फॉर्मूला एंड गेट द सैंपल साइज। अब ये सबसे ट्रिकी पार्ट है, बीच वाला स्टैंडर्ड डेविएशन मैक्सिमम। अभी मोहिंदर सर ने भी बात की कि इनकम भी हमारे यहाँ होती है और बहुत से आपके डेमोग्राफिक्स क्वेश्चंस होते हैं। अब इनकम आपकी लैक्स में है, ठीक है जी, और आपकी दूसरी चीजें जो है लिकर्ट स्केल आपने लिया है, उसकी वैल्यू 5 से ज्यादा जाने नहीं वाली है। अब इसका एक सीधा सा जवाब है और बहुत सिंपल सा जवाब है। देखिए आपकी स्टडी हो क्यों रही है, हमने वो चीज देखना है। उदाहरण के तौर के ऊपर लेट मी गिव यू एग्जांपल। सपोज आई वांट टू स्टडी द डिफ्यूजन रेट ऑफ से मोबाइल वॉलेट्स इन हिमाचल प्रदेश। डिफ्यूजन रेट का मतलब एक्सेप्टेंस रेट बोल लीजिए कि कितना जल्दी लोग उसे एक्सेप्ट कर रहे हैं। ये मेरा प्राइमरी ऑब्जेक्टिव है मेरी स्टडी का। अब इस ऑब्जेक्टिव के लिए मेरी स्टडी हो रही है। नाउ शगुन साइड की हमारा प्रॉब्लम आइडेंटिफिकेशन इज द फर्स्ट स्टेप, स्मृति साइड की हमारे रिसर्च प्रॉब्लम इज द फर्स्ट स्टेप। तो हमारा रिसर्च प्रॉब्लम है कि हम एक्सेप्टेंस रेट, आपने एक कंपनी खोलनी है जिसमें आप मोबाइल वॉलेट लॉन्च करेंगे, हिमाचल में लॉन्च करना है, तो सबसे पहले तो ये जानना पड़ेगा ना कि क्या लोग एक्सेप्ट कर भी रहे हैं उस चीज को, तो एक्सेप्टेंस रेट क्या है। तो ये हमारी प्रॉब्लम डेफिनेशन सपोज हो गई हाइपोथेटिकली। अब इसके लिए आपने एक स्टडी की, अब उस स्टडी के अंदर आपका प्राइमरी मोटिव क्या है, इस चीज को देखना। अब उसके लिए आप इनकम भी लेंगे, जेंडर भी लेंगे, ऑक्यूपेशन भी लेंगे, एजुकेशन भी लेंगे, लेकिन आपका प्राइमरी चीज क्या है, प्राइमरी चीज है आपका ये चीज, विच इज द डिफ्यूजन थिंग। तो वो चीज, वो क्वेश्चन जो कि आपके प्राइमरी ऑब्जेक्टिव को कैटर कर रहे हैं, you take them into consideration while you are calculating this standard deviation maximum thing. If at all you say कि मेरा इनकम भी बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट पार्ट है मेरे इसका, तो आप इनकम भी ले लीजिए। उस केस में आपको एवरेज लेना पड़ेगा, परसेंटेज टर्म्स में लेना पड़ेगा। तो परसेंटेज टर्म्स आपकी उसके लिए भी सेम रहेगी, उसके 3% आपने सपोज स्टैंडर्ड डेविएशन निकाल लीजिए, उसका आप वो ले लीजिए। लेकिन द पॉइंट इज दैट you should better. I have not seen a paper in which people take standard deviation of the things like income or of the other demographics, because they are the dimensions of analyzing the results. The major component of your discussion is this thing, which is the attribute that you're trying to measure, and attribute here is the acceptance rate. So acceptance rate के जो questions हैं उनको आप लीजिए और उनसे आप standard deviation निकालिए और वो standard deviation इस formula के अंदर रखिए, right? So I hope that makes sense.
Yeah.